Okay, so I want to start with a question that's gonna sound insane.
Go for it.
Why is it easier for some people to defuse a bomb than to order a coffee in a second language?
Wait, what?
I'm serious. There's documented cases, bomb disposal techs, surgeons, fighter pilots, people who function under insane physical pressure without flinching. But put a fluent, competent English speaker in front of a barista and ask them to order a medium oat milk latte, and some of them freeze, sweat, forget words they've known since childhood.
Okay, that's actually kind of terrifying when you put it that way.
Right? Because we'd assume the bomb is the scarier scenario. Objectively it is, but the brain doesn't always agree with objectively.
So today we're talking about the fear of speaking English.
Or really, the fear of speaking, period. English just happens to be the language most people are forced to do it in publicly, badly, in front of strangers for the rest of their lives.
I'm Emma.
I'm Jake.
And this is the episode where we try to figure out why a perfectly intelligent, capable adult can turn into a stammering wreck over a sentence they could write flawlessly on paper.
So, picture this. A woman, let's call her Mira, moves from Manila to Toronto for a job. She's been studying English since she was 6 years old. She's read entire novels in English. She watches English shows without subtitles. On paper, she is fluent.
Okay.
First team meeting. Her manager asks her opinion on a project timeline. She knows exactly what she wants to say. She has the sentence built in her head, word for word, perfect grammar.
And
what comes out is 3 disconnected words and a long, awful silence.
Oh no.
She told a researcher later, and this detail kills me. She said it felt like watching someone else try to operate her mouth, like she was a passenger in her own head.
that's such a specific, horrible feeling. I think almost everyone's had some version of that, even in their first language. Like when you're put on the spot and your brain just locks the door.
Exactly. And here's the thing that should bother us. Mira's English wasn't the problem. Her vocabulary wasn't the problem. Her grammar wasn't the problem.
So what was?
That's the question driving this whole episode. If it's not a knowledge problem, what is it?
Okay, so where do we even start untangling that?
With a fact that surprised me when I first came across it. Linguists and psychologists who study this don't even call it a language problem anymore. They call it performance anxiety. Same category as stage fright. Same category as choking during a piano recital.
Wait, so it's not really about English at all?
Not primarily, no. It's about being watched, being judged, having your competence evaluated in real time, out loud with no delete button.
Okay, but here's my pushback already. When I write an email in a language I'm not confident in, I don't feel that fear. I can take my time, fix mistakes. Nobody sees the rough draft.
Right. And that's actually the first real clue. Speaking removes your delete button. Writing has one built in.
Huh. So it's not, I don't know English. It's, I don't have time to be imperfect?
That's a huge part of it. But it's not the whole answer. Because if it were just about time pressure, you'd expect people to get more comfortable the longer they live somewhere, the more practice they get.
And they don't?
Sometimes they don't. There are people who've lived in English-speaking countries for 15, 20 years who are still terrified to speak up in a meeting. Meanwhile, there are total beginners, a few months into learning, who'll cheerfully butcher every sentence and not care at all.
That's so counterintuitive. You'd think more exposure equals more confidence.
You'd think. So now we've got a complication. Time and practice alone don't fix it, which means something else is going on underneath.
Okay, I need to know what that something else is.
So here's where it gets interesting. There's a concept some researchers use called the second self. The idea that when you speak a foreign language, you're not just translating words, you're operating a slightly different version of yourself.
What do you mean a different version?
Think about your personality in your native language. You've got decades of vocabulary, slang, timing, jokes, sarcasm, all perfectly calibrated. You know exactly how to be funny, how to be assertive, how to soften a request.
Right, it's automatic.
Now strip almost all of that away. Suddenly you have a fraction of your vocabulary. You're not sure if your joke will land or just sound weird. You don't know the cultural reference everyone else in the room just laughed at.
Oh, that's rough. You basically become a simplified version of yourself.
A simplified version that other people then judge as if it's the real full version of you.
Wait, say that again?
People judge your simplified second language self as if it represents your full intelligence, your full personality, your full competence.
Okay, that actually hit me a little. Because that's not fair. That's like judging someone's full personality based on the one paragraph they wrote with their non-dominant hand.
That's a perfect comparison, actually. And the person speaking knows this is happening. They can feel the gap between who they actually are and who they're coming across as in that moment.
So the fear isn't, I'll say the wrong word. The fear is, people will think I'm less smart, less capable, less me than I actually am.
Exactly. And that's a much heavier thing to carry into a coffee order than, I don't know the word for oat milk. Here's something that threw me for a loop in the research. Age plays a strange role in this. Children learning a second language rarely show this kind of paralysis. They'll mangle grammar constantly and just keep talking.
Because kids don't care about looking dumb yet.
That's part of it. But there's something else too. Kids haven't built an identity around being smart or competent in the way adults have. An adult professional walking into that meeting has spent 20, 30 years building a self-image. Skilled, capable, respected.
And suddenly that self-image is on the line every time they open their mouth.
Right. The stakes for an adult aren't, did I say the sentence correctly? The stakes are, did I just damage the professional identity I spent decades constructing?
Okay, that reframes this whole thing for me. This isn't really an episode about language at all anymore, is it?
Hold on, what do you mean?
I mean, this is starting to sound like an episode about identity, about how fragile our sense of competence actually is. Language just happens to be the stage where it gets tested in the most exposed way possible.
So let's push on that idea, because I think you just found the real engine of this episode. There's a phrase researchers use, foreign language anxiety. And for a long time, people assumed it was just a subtype of general anxiety. Like anxious people get anxious about speaking English. Simple as that.
Makes sense on the surface.
Except it doesn't hold up. There are people who are calm, confident, even commanding in their native language. Bold negotiators, public speakers, the kind of person who isn't afraid of a room, who turn into someone almost unrecognizable the second they switch languages.
Wait, so confidence doesn't transfer?
Not automatically. Confidence, it turns out, isn't one single trait you carry around with you. It's built language by language, context by context. You build it through thousands of small, successful interactions. The times you spoke and weren't humiliated. The times your joke landed. The times someone understood you on the first try.
So confident in English is basically a separate bank account from confident in life?
That's such a good way to put it. And here's the twist within the twist. Every time someone avoids speaking because they're scared, they're not protecting that bank account. They're keeping it empty.
Oh, that's brutal. The fear causes the avoidance, and the avoidance prevents the only thing that could have cured the fear.
It's a closed loop, a trap that reinforces itself. The less you speak, the scarier speaking becomes. The less you speak.
Wait, hold on. I want to sit with that for a second. Because that's not just true for language. That's true for basically anything we're afraid of doing publicly. Performing, sharing your art, saying what you actually think in a meeting.
Right. And that's exactly why this question matters so much to people who don't even care about English at all. It's a stand-in for every form of self-exposure.
Okay, I have to ask the harder question now. If avoidance is the trap, what actually breaks the loop? Because just practice more feels like an answer that ignores everything we just said about the fear being deeper than vocabulary.
This is where it gets genuinely surprising. There's research on something called tolerance of ambiguity. Basically, how comfortable a person is with not knowing, not being sure, not having control.
Okay.
People with high tolerance of ambiguity learn languages faster and speak with less fear. Not because they know more words, because they're okay with the discomfort of not knowing what's going to happen next in a conversation.
So it's less about training the mouth and more about training the nervous system to be okay with uncertainty.
Exactly. And here's the part that genuinely surprised me. Some of the most effective interventions for this fear have nothing to do with language classes at all. Improv theater, acting exercises, activities that force you to keep talking even when you don't know what's coming next, and to treat the stumble as part of the performance instead of a failure.
Wait, so the fix for language anxiety might literally be drama class?
For some people, yes. Because it retrains the actual fear response, the fear of being watched while imperfect, rather than just adding more vocabulary to a brain that's already drowning in vocabulary it's too scared to use.
That changes everything about how I'd think to help someone with this.
It changes everything about how we think about fluency itself. We treat fluency like it's a measure of knowledge. But for a huge number of people, the real ceiling isn't what they know. It's what they're willing to risk saying out loud.
We've been talking about this like it's a problem to solve. Like there's a technique, a hack, a class you take, and the fear goes away. But what if the fear is actually correct?
What do you mean, correct?
I mean, when Mira freezes in that meeting, her brain isn't malfunctioning. It's accurately predicting that she's about to be judged by people who will never know how brilliant she sounds in her first language. The fear is responding to something real. The world genuinely does judge people by how smoothly they speak the dominant language, even when that has nothing to do with their intelligence.
Oh, wait, that's heavy.
So the goal isn't to convince yourself the fear is irrational. It's to decide to speak anyway, knowing the judgment might happen and choosing your own growth over the comfort of staying silent and safe.
That's not a confidence trick. That's an act of courage.
I think that's the actual heart of this whole topic. We keep treating fear of speaking English like a small, fixable, technical glitch. But for a lot of people, it's one of the bravest things they do on a regular basis. Walking into a room knowing you might sound less capable than you are and speaking anyway.
I never thought about it like that. We frame it as overcoming a weakness, but it might be closer to showing up despite a real cost.
Right. And I think that reframes what we even mean by fluency. Maybe fluency isn't the absence of fear. Maybe fluency is being willing to speak while the fear is still there.
She told the researcher something else, actually, later in that same interview. She said the turning point wasn't a class. It wasn't a technique. It was a coworker who, after one of her stumbles, just said, "Take your time. I want to hear what you think."
Oh.
That's it. That's the whole intervention. Someone signaling that the imperfection was acceptable, that she wasn't being secretly graded.
So the fear didn't disappear because she got better at English.
No, it loosened because someone made the room safer to be imperfect in.
That's such an unsatisfying answer in some ways. We want there to be a technique, a 5-step method, a fix you can apply on your own.
And there are tools, exposure, practice, accepting mistakes as part of the process, even the improv thing we mentioned. Those genuinely help, but none of them fully replace the other half of the equation, which isn't in the speaker's control at all.
The listener's patience.
The listener's patience. Which means this fear we've been talking about for the last 2 minutes isn't only the speaker's problem to fix. It's something the rest of us are constantly either feeding or starving every time we react to someone's imperfect sentence with impatience or with grace.
That's not the ending I expected when we started talking about coffee orders and bomb disposal.
Yeah, we buried the lead a little on ourselves there.
So let's try to land this. What do we actually know now that we didn't at the start?
We know it was never really about vocabulary or grammar or knowing the right word for oat milk.
We know it's about identity, about a simplified version of yourself being judged as if it's the whole picture.
We know avoidance and fear feed each other in a loop that practice alone doesn't always break.
And we know the fear isn't irrational. It's responding to something true about how the world treats accents, hesitations, imperfect grammar.
Which means the people who keep speaking anyway, stumbling, restarting, getting laughed at sometimes, getting misunderstood sometimes, they're not failing at fluency.
They're practicing courage in a language that isn't fully theirs yet.
I keep coming back to that line. Fluency isn't the absence of fear. It's speaking while the fear is still there.
I think that's true of more than language, honestly. Every time any of us says the imperfect, risky, true thing out loud instead of staying quiet and safe, that's the same exact mechanism. The same fear, the same loop, the same choice.
So maybe the question this episode leaves us with isn't, how do I stop being afraid of speaking English?
Maybe it's, what would I say in any language if I stopped waiting to sound perfect first?
That's the episode.
I'm still thinking about that coworker. Take your time. I want to hear what you think. Such a small sentence to change so much.
Maybe that's the whole point. The smallest sentences are sometimes the ones doing the most work.